Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Today I thought I would chat to you about some sequels that I want to read this year. I haven't talked about any reading goals for this year on this channel yet, and one of them is that I try and continue series that I already started last year. I think it's very easy to sometimes get lost in new series and not committing and finishing them. So I thought I would make this one of my goals, and today I will show you 4 books that are sequels in some way within a series that I want to definitely get to read until the end of 2019. The first book I want to mention is part of a comic book series, and it's the Montress series, which is written by Marjorie and illustrated by Takeda. This is an epic fantasy series which takes place in an Asian-inspired fantasy world where basically there's a war between magical creatures called arcanics and humans. More specifically, a group of sorcerers or sorceresses who are using arcanics to draw their energy and their magic from them to gain more power. And our protagonist, Maika, she is an arcanic. In the beginning of the series, she is looking to seek revenge on the death of her mother, and as the series goes on, she gets to know more about her mother and what she was involved with, and very quickly she's caught between the two warring factions. On top of all of that, she also discovers that inside of her lives some kind of demonic force. She also has to deal with that because sometimes she's prone to very violent outbursts because the demon inside of her wants to get out. So I think the series is really nice. It's very fast-paced, very entertaining, there's lots going on, the world building is really good. It can be a bit violent, so there's some blood and gore if this is something you're sensitive to, but the artwork is so amazing. I think it also has really interesting things to say about war, slavery, racism, and a lot of these themes. So I really recommend it if this sounds like something you would like. And I have read volume 1 and volume 2, and volume 3 came out not so long ago. I still didn't get to it, so I'm definitely looking forward to picking that up. The second sequel that I want to mention is from a very well-known fantasy series. It's Eldest, the second book from the Inheritance cycle from Christopher Paolini. This is the sequel to Eragon, which is a fantasy book where we get to know our main protagonist, a young man called Eragon, who lives in a far corner of a fantasy world where people used to connect with dragons, and there would also be dragon riders, but these have died out and there's only one dragon rider left, which is the king of the country, Allegasia. He rules Allegasia under an iron fist, and he basically allows no one to have any contact with dragons, which at that time where the first book starts, people think they have died out, and basically only the king has a dragon. This leads to the fact that a lot of people want to rebel. There's a faction of rebels who live in a hidden mountain, and there is also an elves population who are magical beings and used to have connections with dragons too. And in the midst of all this stuff going on, we have our young protagonist Eragon, who finds per mistake a dragon egg when he was hunting in the forest, and he suddenly has to take care of this dragon who can communicate with him telepathically. Suddenly he has a destiny to fulfill, and he didn't ask for it at all. I read the first and the second book of this series a very long time ago when I was a teenager, and I remember really enjoying them, and that's why I wanted to get back into this series. And I read Eragon last year, and I only gave it 2 stars. Somehow I didn't enjoy it as much as I remembered I did, so I'm still a bit reluctant to pick the second one up because they are really big books, and I really hope this picks up. I felt like the first book was a bit dragging sometimes. There were things going on, but sometimes it felt a bit repetitive because Aragon is on this quest and he's traveling a lot of the book. So in the second book he has more encounters with the elves, so I am actually motivated and interested to see what happens there and what he gets to learn. I think I'm still invested to try and read this book and see where the series goes, and hopefully it will pick up. And yeah, the third book I want to mention today is historical fiction, and it's the second book in the Neapolitan Quartet by Elena Ferrante. I read the first of this series last year and I really enjoyed it. It's basically a coming of age stories of two young girls who are growing up in a very poor neighborhood of Naples in Italy. And in the first book you follow them as they're quite young until they're about 16, I believe. So until one of them goes to high school and the other one gets married. It's a very interesting depiction of friendship between two young girls. There's a lot of jealousy but also a lot of love and friendship going on. I really like this. The girls are quite young in the first book, so I'm also hoping that I can connect even more with as they grow older. The writing itself is very visceral. It's a very honest and true depiction of people living in very poor circumstances. It really shows the violence of their environment and that sometimes they just don't have that much of a choice as young girls growing up in Italy after the Second World War. The first book very much did feel like a first installment of a series. It was very much setting the mood, and you could get used to the writing and the characters because there's quite a big cast of characters. So I'm really interested to see where this goes. The first book also ends on quite a cliffhanger, so there's definitely enough motivation for me to get on with this, and I definitely want to finish the whole quartet. And lastly, I want to mention a literary fiction book, and that is Winter by Ali Smith. Ali Smith is currently writing also a quartet, a seasonal quartet. So she released Autumn in 2016, which I already read, and this book dealt with the direct aftermath of Brexit in the UK. She is commenting in this book a lot about xenophobia and the kind of confusion that was going on at that time in Great Britain. And with this quartet she's basically aiming at providing a kind of state of the nation depiction of her country at different stages, and Winter was released in 2017, so I still haven't got to it, but I know that it's about a family who is kind of estranged, who meets in a house in Cornwall for Christmas, and they basically are a framework for Ali Smith developing a lot of themes that were going on around that time, including the Trump administration, the refugee crisis, and climate change. So I'm really interested to see where she goes with that one. I must say that I guess anyone who has read Ali Smith before will understand what I mean when I say that her writing can be a bit hard to get into. She writes in a very freestyle kind of way. It's very experimental, but it is also very poetic. And I think there's a lot of things hidden under her words, and it's, I think, the kind of books that really benefit from reading them several times to really get all the things that are under the surface. So yeah, this is not the kind of book you read just in passing. This is the kind of book you have to commit to, and I was a bit intimidated by it. I planned to read it last winter, so that didn't happen. So now I'm really determined to get to that within 2019. So that was the 4 books that I wanted to mention today. I would really love to know if you guys have read any of these or the previous books. Let me know if you have read them and what you thought of them. Is it worth the commitment also, because it always is a commitment to get into a series and to finish it. I do plan to make another video probably at the end of 2019 to kind of reflect on whether I read any of these books, if I like them, and if I plan to go on with the series. Do let me know all your thoughts about these if you have any. If you're new, come and chat to me in the comments, say hello. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, bye!